Anyways, so we're going to get into some climate change news. But before I do that, I just want to make a few public service announcements. So, again, on Tuesday, I'm going to be on KMUD, 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You can listen to the interview on kmud.org. And actually, on Tuesday day, I'm not going to be here. There's not going to be a live stream. So that will be the only place you can hear me on Tuesday is Tuesday evening on kmud.org. So Tuesday morning, I will not be doing a live stream. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a guest, Iapo. Iapo Ngina has been with us before. She's going to be on the show. And we're just going to talk about various and sundry politics, climate change, all kinds of stuff. And also, just to let you know, I am now, if you want to support the channel, I'm now accepting Bitcoin and Ether. The links, if you want to donate Bitcoin or Ether, there are links in my description box. So anybody who's up on that or interested in donating Bitcoin or Ether to me, I accept those. Now, maybe y'all don't care. I don't know. So just letting you know. So let's get into this from Zach Labe. Above average temperature over nearly the entire Arctic so far this month in the lower atmosphere. So this is, I guess, the anomaly, what the temperature anomaly looks like for October 2020. Somebody says, can anyone suggest how many cans of beans we should have to weather? Okay, I mean, how much whiskey? I mean, oh boy, never mind. Somebody says, is it all the servers in Greenland? The ones I'm using to post this? My bad. Wow. So yeah, this is frightening and surprising. Or not surprising at all. Sorry. Strike that. Reverse that. Not surprising at all. Let's move on to another post from Zach Labe. Still waiting for the refreeze. This is the Siberian Arctic. Note that the basin is geographically constrained. Same maximum sea ice cover equals flat line. So this is where we are in the Siberian Arctic as of yesterday. Very, very, very bad things. And yeah, let's look at one more graph here. Arctic sea ice extent and 2020 kind of just shooting out of all, previous graph trends. Just whee. Who knows when this will start to go up or whether it's just going to shoot straight across? Nobody knows. We are on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and we don't know actually who is in control of the levers. So let me get to the story that I wanted to get to. A lot of people were talking about this on Twitter, and this is fairly angering, frustrating, etc. So I'm going to read this story a little bit, and we'll talk about it. Big bear attacks a man in Colorado after he accidentally went near her cubs. A female bear attacked a man in Colorado on Thursday morning, giving him an injury to the upper forearm. The man was walking outside his home in the Edwards community to retrieve his dog when the incident occurred, according to Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I'm assuming the Edwards community is, not an urban area, right? They're probably closer to nature. I'm just assuming this. If bears are close by, it is the 7th bear attack this year in the state, according to the agency. The bears are angry as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore. The sow charged, at the unidentified man while he was walking and took a swipe at him. He rushed inside his home for safety and suffered no further injuries. Holy crap, I didn't even see this headline. Bear with head and paws cut off found in California may have been tortured. God damn it. Staff at a local healthcare facility treated his injuries, which were not life-threatening. He didn't know he was between a bear or anything. Randy Hampton, Regional Public Information Officer with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, told the Aspen Times he didn't see the big bear until it was coming at him. Following the incident, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials found the sow responsible for the attack in a tree with her cubs. The man hadn't noticed the juvenile bears during the attack. As per CPW policy, officials euthanized the mother bear, good God, and took the cubs into their possession. They will Why? This is a CPW policy is just kill the bear. They will eventually be taken to the Frisco Creek Wildlife Hospital and Rehabilitation Center. Oh, great. Sorry, little bears. We're going to take you to a rehab where they will be prepared for the coming winter. Well, if you didn't kill the mother, maybe they'd be prepared. You lunatics. This is just ridiculous. This is wild. Anyways, bear attacks resulting in injuries to humans are very rare, except for the fact that we're encroaching on all of their space. And now with climate change, they are losing their food, their habitat, and now they're getting closer to humans. And of course, when bears collide with humans, the bears always lose. Humans always win. Unless they're just eaten, like the hunter in Alaska, in which case the bears still might lose anyways. If they can find the bear, like if this happened in Colorado, they'd probably be euthanized. CPW data shows the latest incident was the 7th bear attack in Colorado this year. One of these incidents occurred in July when a bear swiped an Aspen man in the face inside his home. Go Bears. Sorry, Aspen man, but go Bears. The man heard something in his house, got up, walked out, and there's the bear, and it was in his living room. Wow. So, a lot of people were like, don't call the authorities. If you have a run-in with the bear and you're not dead, don't call the authorities, right? Never call the authorities about, or maybe this happens all the time, actually, in my neighborhoods surrounding me. We have a lot of bears kind of ambling out of the mountains. However, they don't euthanize the bears that come out of the mountains here. They usually just sedate them and take them back into the wild. But the bears wander out of the wilderness here and people call the cops. And then it turns into a big showdown and it's on TV. Obviously, a lot more dangerous for the bears when that happens. You might want to just scare them away. Make a lot of noise and scare them away, and maybe they'll find their way back to nature, hopefully. Anyways, I want to read. So this is the inspiration for the title of my video, of course. Don't feed the humans. Don't feed the humans. I've heard this twist on the phrase "don't feed the bears" before, but sitting here in the year 2020 on the edge of ecological collapse, it's taken on a much more significant meaning. Seen through the lens of humanitarianism and social justice, it seems heartless, cruel, an item on the wish list of a right-wing libertarian. From the perspective of a person who cares about the encroachment of humans on the natural world, it speaks on the direct destructiveness of humans. The desire to keep humans out of pristine environments, just like humans want to keep bears away from their habitats by not feeding them, quote unquote. It also says don't interact with bears because they are big, strong, unpredictable, possibly deadly, much like humans. It's beautiful that humans want to feed other humans, much like the impulse to feed bears. It's our caring nature and desire to give of our bounty to others so that they might not go hungry. But those who know better know what kind of problems arise by messing with nature's balance in regards to wild animals and humans. What's a better way to separate humanitarianism from anthropocentrism? That's an actual question I have. That I wonder, because we obviously don't have a lot of conversations in this area, not as a species, certainly not politically. I think there's a way you can care for your fellow man without promoting humans in every way. I think the evidence that we are dangerous, sloppy, destructive, and a threat to all life on Earth is apparent. Some want to blame it on the rich, some on the teeming masses of poorers. Obviously, the wealthy drive planetary destruction, but the aspiring wealthy, which include the less wealthy in first world countries, and even the aspiring developing world, are doing their share of destruction too. What will it take to humble ourselves now that we've cast off the confining yoke of religion and given ourselves completely to our own godlike image? Even those that look to the stars see us as nascent conquerors and not the puny dust motes of the universe that we are. We love ourselves, all of us, the way a GOP politician might. We want every baby to get into the world, but our responsibility ends there. Where will this go? What will it see? What will it eat? What will it consume? How long will it live? How many boats and cars and planes will it own? How many medicines and machines will it need to get through a long, long life? We bristle that anyone can tell us what to do, especially the wild, especially Mother Nature and the unexpected, the death warrant that has all of our names on it. We are children who have not yet to grow up, who can't read the sign. Don't feed the humans. And that's my little op-ed on that article. But obviously we need, much more wild and much less humans encroaching on the wild. And the way to do that is to understand the concept of, the balance of life on the planet, understand the concept of overshoot, understand the concept of too many humans and too many resources and not enough earth and not enough animals and not enough forests and not enough lakes and oceans and rivers, right? We are starting to far outbalance all of those things and affect those things negatively, and that's why it's called the Anthropocene. And that's why it's called the sixth or seventh mass extinction event that we're entering into. Poppy Davis, humans not good, bears better. Yeah, we believe in bears, obviously, on this channel. Gold bears. Yeah, but this story, just so frustrating. And did they really have to kill that bear? The bear, obviously was just defending her cubs. And if you're living out in a wilderness area or close to the wilderness, and there are wild animals out there, you don't get to impose your humanness on the wild, right? You just get to deal with it. Anyways, in a perfect world, that's how it would work. But right now, it's humans above everything. And that will actually lead to our demise. We can't even see the writing on the wall or the truth right in front of our face that humans over everything will mean humans no more. Anyways, let's move on to a little deeper look into the story around releasing of the radiated water in Fukushima. At Fukushima, this is from Common Dreams from 2 days ago. Greenpeace warns potential damage to human DNA at risk with Japan's plan to dump Fukushima water into ocean. The policy of the Japanese government to dump nuclear waste into the Pacific Ocean is not based on scientific or environmental protection principles and has no justification. Greenpeace sounded alarm Friday over the Japanese government's plan to release stored water from the ill-fated Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean, releasing a new report warning about the presence of carbon-14, which the group says has the potential to damage human DNA. What about the other animals' DNA? What about, what about other things other than humans? But whatever. The warning laid out in a new report says the government and plant operator TEPCO's controversial plan, which has been under consideration for some time, is founded on a series of myths and pursues the cheapest option to get rid of the water over what is best for human and ecological health. The plan allows the government to create the impression that substantial progress is being made in the early decommissioning of the Fukushima Daiichi reactors, Greenpeace says. Entitled Stemming the Tide 2020, The Reality of the Fukushima Radioactive Water Crisis, the publication argues that the planned release of the water will have serious long-term consequences for communities and the environment, locally and much further afield. Nearly 10 years after the start of the disaster, TEPCO and the Japanese government are still covering up the scale of the crisis at Fukushima Daiichi, said Sean Burney, author of the report and senior nuclear specialist with Greenpeace Germany. He further accused the entities of having deliberately held back for years detailed information on the radioactive material in the contaminated water. Beyond the remaining radioactive material tritium in the water, an additional problem is the presence of high levels of carbon-14, which belies the government's assertion that the water is not contaminated, said Greenpeace. According to the report, if the contaminated water is discharged to the Pacific Ocean, all of the carbon-14 will be released to the environment. With a half-life of 5,730 years, carbon-14 is a major contributor to the global human collective dose. Once introduced into the environment, carbon-14 will be delivered to local, regional, and global populations for many generations. Contrary to the understanding of the Japanese government, water that contains large quantities of radioactive carbon-14, as well as other radioactive isotopes, including strontium-90 and tritium, can only be described as contaminated. There's no technical, engineering, or legal barrier to securing additional storage space for the ALPS-treated contaminated water. It is a matter of political will, said Burney. The policy of the Japanese government to dump nuclear waste into the Pacific Ocean is not based on scientific or environmental protection principles, and he said it has no justification. All right. When will it end? People keep asking, and nobody really has a timeline. I don't know what they're planning, how quickly they're planning on decommissioning that nuclear plant. Let's see. Let's move on to more news around the effects of extreme weather on crop production and food availability. We have been talking about this on quite a few days this week. We talked about the subject. I'm going to go to this tweet from Jim Baird. Wild weather is wreaking havoc on crops around the world, sending their prices skyrocketing. It's looking very bleak, says the executive director of the World Food Program. So let's go to this article from The Print. So more news coming out. This has kind of been ongoing story from different regions of the planet. Different places are reporting, losses of crop yields, etc., due to extreme weather events. As I believe it was TCR pointed out, yes, we have a glut. We have an oversupply of food, in many areas of the world. So nobody's really going to feel the effects yet, other than, it's a little more expensive to eat this food here. Or maybe, we run out of a few different vegetables here and there. It's not necessarily affecting, people to the point of starvation, but we're not there yet being the operative word. Floods, drought, and destroying crops around the world and sparking food inflation. The sudden emergence of supply strains has come as a blow to the global economy, which has been struggling to regain its footing after the shock of the COVID-19 lockdowns. This is from, yesterday. Bloomberg, wild weather is wreaking havoc on crops around the world, sending their prices skyrocketing. Wild weather. We'll just call it wild weather. Whoa, the weather is so wild, so weird, so wacky. On wheat farms in the U.S. and Russia, it's drought that's ruining harvests. The soybean fields of Brazil are bone dry too, touched little more than the occasional shower. In Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, the problem is the exact opposite. Torrential downpours are causing flooding in rice fields and stands of oil palm trees. The sudden emergence, of these supply strains is a big blow to the global economy that has been struggling to regain its footing after the shock of the COVID-19 lockdowns. As prices soar on everything from sugar to cooking oil, millions of working class families that had already been forced to scale back food purchases in the pandemic are being thrust deeper into financial distress. So I'm wondering who is seeing what kind of inflation where, right? Where I'm sure this is very different on a regional basis. Maybe not so much in the US, but in other areas, maybe more remote areas, maybe, different areas of the world, i.e. Africa, South America, Asia, are people seeing different prices or price spikes for food? And, there are a lot of different factors going on around what food costs given what region you're in. What's more, the increases threaten to push up broader inflation indexes in some countries and can make it harder for central bankers to keep providing monetary stimulus to shore up growth. The Bloomberg Agriculture Spot Index, yes, I can read, a gauge of 9 crop prices, has risen 28% since late April. That's quite a bit. To its highest level in more than 4 years. Wheat earlier this week was the most expensive since 2014. The fundamentals have changed dramatically since May, said Don Roos, president of brokerage U.S. Commodities in Iowa. The weather is bubbling to the top. And we have demand chugging in a bull market. The fallout from the pandemic means the United Nations was already warning of a worst-case scenario. In which about a tenth of the world's population would go hungry this year. So that's their worst-case scenario, is a tenth of the world's population would go hungry. Things could become more dire if grocery costs keep rising and even more people can't afford to eat. It's looking very bleak, said David Beasley, executive director of the World Food Program, the hunger fighting group that won the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize. Declining currencies and food importing nations, the threat of more economic shutdowns, and struggles for farmers to expand production could all compound the problem, he said. Wow. Sounds like we could have some kind of food supply collapse or impact. You start adding all these things together and you begin to almost run around like the sky is falling, but it ain't Chicken Little, Beasley said. It ain't Chicken Little because it's actually happening. Nobody's saying this in order to get a reaction. Mangled supply chains and a flood of buying already sent food prices higher in many countries earlier this year as COVID-19 lockdowns disrupted global trade. But even then, there was an ample cushion of grain stockpiles, and northern hemisphere harvests were expected to be bountiful. Then came the dry weather. Climate scientists have long warned that an increase in unpredictable and extreme weather patterns would be a growing threat to crop production and food security. These climate scientists have been saying this for a long time. Now we are experiencing what it means to be living in a climate-disrupted world. as wildfires blaze across the U.S. West. Hurricane season grows more ferocious, and forecasters say that 2020 could be the world's hottest year on record. Antonio Carlos Simonetti, a fourth-generation orange grower in Brazil, is seeing the change firsthand. With drought and heat plaguing his lands in Sao Paulo state, the world's top region for orange juice production, the river that usually snakes across his property has vanished. That's the first time that's happened since the family acquired the farm 36 years ago. Oranges on his 500-hectare grove are drying up inside and becoming crystallized as the trees suck all the water from the fruit to try to survive the parched conditions. After making some sales earlier in the season, I don't have more fruits to sell, said Simonetti, who expects his harvest to drop about 50% this year because of the weather. 50%. What remains on the trees are dried without water inside. Shopping spree. It's not just the weather sparking higher crop prices. Agricultural commodity buyers from Cairo to Islamabad have been on a shopping spree as nations try to protect themselves from more disruptions to supply chains. Guys, this is not good. Like those seen earlier this year when lockdowns left food stranded at ports, sparked trucking delays, and created log jams at warehouses. So this has nothing to do with COVID and everything to do with climate change affecting the supply of food globally. A weaker real is boosting prices even further in agricultural superpower Brazil, where soybeans are up 81% and corn 56% this year. Yikes. Also raising costs for chicken and pork production. Yikes. As an emergency measure, local government has temporarily removed import tariffs for soybeans, corn, rice, and wheat to control food inflation. Jordan has built up a record wheat reserves, while Egypt, the world's top buyer of the grain, took the unusual step of tapping international markets during its local harvest and has boosted purchases by more than 50% since April. This is what looks like a bit of quiet panic on the part of many nations to reserve, build their food reserves because they see what's coming. However, this is not a major news headline yet, right? I don't know how many people are seeing this on their TVs when they're watching CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. How much are they talking about this? Probably 0%. So this hasn't quite made it into people's consciousness yet. But if it continues, I can imagine it certainly will. The last protracted... Oh, hold on. Let me go back. Taiwan said it will increase strategic food stockpiles, and China has been buying to feed its growing hog herd. Osama says TV bad. That's funny. The last protracted run-up in food prices back in 2011 helped contribute to uprisings in the Arab Spring. And I believe the Syrian crisis started shortly after that. Am I right? Right around that time. That said, prices have a long way to climb before reaching those levels. Also, a bumper crop in Australia may help to fill the supply gap. That growth in demand helps to explain why prices are moving higher despite a still hefty inventory cushion. Okay, so we still have lots of reserves on hand, so I guess that's good news for the short term. Global reserves of wheat, for example, are forecast to reach a record this year. All right. That's good news for the short term. Those supplies could eventually help to bring food inflation back in check if concerns over weather problems start to die down. What do you think the concerns over weather problems start to die down? Is climate change going to stop getting worse? Is it going to stop being climate change anytime soon? All signs point to negatory. But who knows? Maybe we'll get a break. Maybe we'll get a respite. Maybe we'll get some kind of break from the onslaught of climate change. But it doesn't look like that, right? Looking at how the Arctic is going, looking at how wildfires are going, extreme weather events are going, looking at what's happening on the trend line of extreme weather, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there.